Hi, crafters. Thank you for stopping by. So I went live this morning with Crafty Al and Yvette, and since we only had an hour, I really couldn't get into the details of how I colored my flowers for each of my cards. So I thought I would make a separate video, and then that way I could show you better how I did it. So I could get the results that I had on the cards that I showed you. Now, if you didn't see that live, you can go back and watch the replay, and I will make sure to put that video link in my description box if you missed it. So here we're going to work on the flower that I created for card 1. And I've already done all my stamping. I'm just going to do my coloring. But the leaves on this one is stamped in the fresh freesia, and it's 2nd generation stamping because I just wanted a faint color there. And then I stamped my flowers in the Memento Tuxedo Black. So now, as far as coloring it goes, I'm taking my light Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to go ahead and color, let's see. I want to color the dark areas with this. So I'm going to basically just focus on the areas where there's a lot of, like, in the stamped image there. So I'm going to focus this color in those areas. So now that I've explained it, I'll speed up the video and then come back and slow it down so that you can see each step of the way. Okay, so there is what I did with the light Blackberry Bliss. Now we're going to move on to the light and dark fresh freesia. And I'm going to concentrate my dark fresh freesia on the stems and the bottom of the flowers. I have my little notes here to the side so that I don't forget how I colored them. So let's go ahead and and do that part, and then we'll continue on. Okay, so that's what it looks like after I added the dark fresh freesia. Now we're going to move on to just coloring the rest of the flower with the light fresh freesia. And what I do is I kind of go over the entire thing to do some blending. And you can, depending on what you want to do, I've been using the pointy end, but now that I have a bigger area, I can switch to the brush end. Okay, so there is that. Now, if you decide you still want it a little darker toward the bottoms of the flowers, you can definitely go back over it with the the dark fresh freesia, which I might do just a little bit of that. I just love that you can just keep adding layers until you get the look that you want. And I think that's what I love about alcohol markers. And then, then you can still go ahead and come back in with the lighter color and go on top of it, because then that darkens it even more, and blend it out. I just think you can do so much. And if you don't color all the areas, I love that too, because then it gives it the little highlights that you need. So there is our first flower. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the flower for card number 2. Okay, so for this flower, the leaves are stamped in Coastal Cabana, and I'm going to color with light Bubble Bath, light and dark Melon Mambo, and then I'm going to do my stems in the light Summer Splash. And that's because there was not a stamping blend for Coastal Cabana. So I felt that light summer splash really went well with the leaves. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to color the entire flower with the light bubble bath. So let's pull that in, and since I'm doing the entire flower, I'll just bring in the brush tip and then just color all the areas. And it doesn't matter if you go over the middle because we're going to add a different color there. I think this will just enhance it. So let me finish coloring all these and then we'll go on to the next color. Okay, and what I like is it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Because the flower looks kind of unperfect, and so I like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the light Melon Mambo, and we're going to focus on pretty much the whole flower, but we're going to leave the tips of the flower. We're not going to touch that with the marker because I want those to stay the bubble bath look. So again, I think on this I'm going to use the brush end as well. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to come in with the dark Melon Mambo and do the dark areas. Now this, I think I'm going to use my tip because I want a little more control. And I'm going to really put my dark like around the center of the flower. And then just kind of keep pulling it up into those stamped lines. I think that really helps to guide on where to put the darker colors. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And then now I'm going to take the light bubble bath and go over the entire flower again to give it that, so it'll kind of blend all the colors together. Okay, so then what you can do is if you wanted the center to be a little lighter, you can always go in and with your color lifter and pull up a little color there in the middle if you like the way this one looks better, how it has the highlight. So it's all in what you're looking for when you're coloring. Now I'm going to take my light Summer Splash and do the leaves and the stems on these flowers. Okay, now you could, if you wanted to use the dark Summer Splash, you could do that as well, but I like to kind of do up here underneath the flower, but you can kind of just also go over it with your marker again, just in those areas. If you wanted to give it that little darker look, or if you wanted to add a little darker down this side, or a little bit on the leaves. Just going over it a second time will kind of give you that. But there is how I colored my flowers for the second card. Now we're going to move on to my third card. Okay, so before we get started on coloring the flower for the third card, I wanted to show you that I didn't like the way that was so dark on what I just finished coloring. So I did bring in my color lifter and took off some of that color there in the middle, and also a little bit more on this one, and went over it with the light bubble bath. Now, so think about that. If you like that brighter in the center, then don't, just leave it the light bubble bath when you color the entire flower, and don't mix any of the other colors on there. And I do like the way that turned out. So now let's move on to coloring this one. Again, I'm doing the same thing for the leaves and the stems as I did on the last one. I'm just changing up the colors for the flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mixture of light calypso coral and light melon mambo. And I'm going to focus, and it's just going to be sporadic. This doesn't have to be perfect. Just, you know, kind of do a little bit here, a little bit there, add a couple colors on the different petals. Do whatever, you know, looks good to you when you're coloring this. So I'm going to start off with the light calypso coral, so then I can go back in because this is darker and I can add that wherever I want it later. See, so I kind of just did a little bit there, and then I can go back in with my light calypso coral and just kind of add more color over the areas, because when you blend that in with the melon mambo, it kind of makes a different color. And so it gives it that variegated look, which I really like on flowers. So you can just keep playing with it until you get, and even like if you go over the parts that you already did, all it does is darken it up. And again, it's going to give you that dark and light variegation that I love. So I think what's so fun about coloring these kind of flowers is there's no rhyme or reason, really. You're just playing, right? And you're just coloring and thinking about the flowers that you see when you plant them in your yard. Like when I'm out looking for flowers, I'm always thinking, oh, I love the color combinations of those flowers. And see, you can just do that. And if you're happy with that, you can leave it at that. Or if you want a little darker around the middle again, you can go back in and add some more of that dark around there. So you can just play with it, right? I just think it's fun. And then again, I forgot to bring over my marker for this, so let me grab that and so that I can come back and finish coloring this flower. Okay, now I can finish the stem with my light summer splash that I'm doing on all the stems, since there's not a blend for the, what did I call it? Coastal Cabana. I wanted to say Calypso Coral, and I thought, well, that doesn't work. That's a coral color, not a green color. So there we go. So you can leave it at that. If you don't like the flower, like you say, oh, this part here looks a little stark on the melon mambo. See, you can just kind of go in and blend it out and take away any of those harsh lines that you're not liking. You know, to just bring it in, to blend it out. So I think this is the fun part, is just looking at it, blending it out. I love it. I love this flower. Okay, so there is how I colored the flower for card 3. Now we'll move on to coloring my last card 4. Okay, so now we're going to color this flower, and it's the same as card 1, but I wanted to do another one of this flower because card 1 was mostly all monochromatic, and even the leaves weren't. So I wanted to do another one where the leaves were the Coastal Cabana. So I'm going to do kind of the same thing I did on one of the other flowers, is I'm going to color the entire flower in the light bubble bath. We're going to start there. Okay, we've got the entire flower covered in the light bubble bath. Now we're going to work on the light and dark petunia pop. And then we're going to bring in a touch of the light melon mambo. And the reason why I did this was because when I originally colored it, I felt like the designer paper that I was using on this card, I felt like it was missing a little bit of the pinkish color in there. So that's why I'm adding this third color. But we'll go ahead and start with the dark petunia pop and focus on various dark areas. And then I will continue on. So let's get the dark part done. Okay, there's some of the dark petunia pop. Now I'm going to come in with some of the light melon mambo and add a little bit of color to these flowers in that color. Okay, so we add a little bit of that light melon mambo. Now let's go ahead and start blending it out with the light petunia pop. Now also, when you're doing this, you don't want to cover up all the pink because you want that variegated look. Okay, now we're going to go back in with the light bubble bath to kind of go over and blend all those colors that we've just put down and see what it looks like. This is the part that I like, the blending of all the colors. That's what really does the final thing to me anyway. Okay, and then if you decide, well, I want a little more, say more of the petunia pop, you just keep playing with it, right? And you just, like I'm going to come in with a little bit more of the dark petunia pop and focus it down here at the bottom and then continue to blend it out with the bubble bath because that's the lighter. And that'll help really blend those colors together. No two flowers are ever going to look the same because you're never going to be able to replicate this again. So I kind of like that. I feel like I wanted a little bit more of the petunia pop in there. So maybe I'll just bring that and try to add just a little bit more. Then I'll come back in again and blend those colors together. Yeah, you're never going to get the two the same. On the card, on one of the cards, it had a little more of the petunia pop, but I can't replicate it because of the way that I'm doing my coloring. So now let's just finish it up by coloring our stems. And then now you'll be able to see how I colored the flowers, my process that I used to color these flowers for my card, since I really couldn't go into that much detail on the live because it wasn't the Carmen's coloring live. It was we were, making a sheet load, the March sheet load. So that's why I wanted to do this separate video. There we go. And I think as it starts to dry, you're also going to get a different look. I can see more of the petunia pop popping through there, but I love that. I love that variegated look. Okay, well, there is all my coloring for the cards that I showed this morning. And if you haven't seen what the cards look like, then click on the link in the description box or at the end card of this video, and you can go back and see what the actual cards look like and see what Yvette and Crafty Al created. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this little coloring video. If you did, you can show me your joy by giving it a thumbs up. Okay, until my next video, have fun crafting, everyone. And remember, choose joy, and may God bless you all. Bye-bye.